Hey guys, I'm doing a follow-up to a video that I made that's really for the Revolving Planeswalk Blue node, and it's basically taking advantage of a bug that the community found with Kiora, the new masterpiece creature Sovereign of the Deep. When you're casting herself, you're casting a merfolk. So what happens is, fetch the first card with lesser mana from your library, gains full mana, is how it's supposed to be working, but it's actually just fetching whatever card is the least mana value in your deck. It has to be, well, it really ends up being equal to or less than. But basically, what's happening is if you have Rocco in your deck as the card with the least amount of mana cost to it, then it will always fetch Rocco. So we figured that out, and we figured out that it looped. You add Blade Coil to it, and yeah, let the shenanigans begin. But we also figured out a few different things to try with it. And so what I did was I created a deck that had all the sea creature type cards in my deck in standard that are equal to or more than Kiora, Sovereign of the Deep. Or I should say in my collection. So this is everything in standard that is an octopus, kraken, leviathan, serpent, or merfolk in standard right now that costs more than Kiora. So what happens when you fetch all these cards? What does the game do with it? So we figured out that if you have everything over the mana cost of your creatures, it will eventually run out of creatures to fetch, and it will start grabbing cards that have more of a mana cost than your creatures. So in order to illustrate this, let me show you what happens when you play with this deck. Okay, we got a Kiora going now. So now let's replace our creatures and see it grabs enough Kioras to, it goes through all the creatures in your library and fetches as much as you can. So there are 4 instances of a card at any given point in your library, unless you do something to refill your your deck, such as destroying cards in your library. So that's what we're doing now. We're trying to get to where we just cast 4 cards of, or the 4 copies of each creature in your deck. So that's what Kiora is doing here. That's why I'm doing that here. So what ended up happening is now it's just grabbing copies of Breach the Multiverse. Let me see if I have another Kiora. So if I cast another Kiora, see if I got enough, if I got a match anywhere that'll let me do that this turn, because otherwise I'll just win. But yeah, I'll just stall my creatures. Okay, so here we go. Watch what happens when I cast Kiora, Sovereign of the Deep here. Grabs Kiora 4 times, and then it grabs a Blade Coil because it's the next highest cost mana. Then it'll grab Wave Casters because those are also 16 mana. So those are my 4 instances of Blade Coil. So now it's going to grab my Wavecaster. Now it's moving up to Tidal Terror. And then now it's moved up to Hullbreaker Horror. So now it's doing that. And then eventually it gets to Pyromancer's Goggles, which is the next least cost of mana in this deck. So either grab Breach the Multiverse or Pyromancer's Goggles, whichever comes up in your library first. So it's a very strange bug that's happening, but you can take advantage of it that way with some fun. So let me show you what happens actually in Legacy, where we have more Krakens, Octopus, Merfolk, Leviathans, Serpents, etc. at our disposal. Okay, so here's what I did with this deck. I'm using Saheeli Rai because her deck load, you can put up to 8 creatures in it. And so I just filled my deck with high cost sea creature types. But the most important one actually is Gyruda, Doom of Depths. When this creature enters the battlefield, destroy the top 8 cards of each player's library. So when you do that, you're usually going to refresh your library and add more cards to that pool so you can keep grabbing more creatures, and it won't actually run out of creatures in this deck. So what happens is you just keep fetching more and more creatures until you either cast another Gyruda or you run out of cards to fetch. So you usually get to a point where you're grab Gyruda and then it basically resets and you start fetching Blade Coils and Kioras again. So I'll show you how that works, and it's very strange. Okay, well, Vindicator's annoying, but so here we go. Grab Tishana next. Grab another Gyruda. Now we get a Blade Coil happening here. So destroying our library, we're just grabbing Blade Coils over and over again. Then it grabs a Gyruda, which should make it reset. So that's what we're doing with Tishana. So we're back to grabbing Gyrudas again. But I think if I take out Tishana for higher cost creatures, then I don't have to keep replacing Tishana. So maybe I'll try that next. But see, as long as I grab Gyruda, I'll just keep continuously grabbing the creatures. Okay, now it's moved up to Slinvoda, the Rising Deep. That got rid of that creature. So now it's moving back up to Kioras again. So now I think because we destroyed my library enough times, it goes back to the cycle of Tishana or Kiora first, then moves up to Gyruda. So yeah, I think if I only have Kiora, Blade Coil, and Gyruda as the creatures in my deck, I can just keep doing this forever. So let me try that once we finish our match here. Okay, so here's my legacy deck with Sarkhan, and we got 4 creatures because, well, for one, Slinvoda, the Rising Deep, is a Leviathan, and it's got higher mana cost than my other ones in here, but it also helps us a little bit of defense because it drains 4 mana from your hand, then returns all non-Merfolk, non-Kraken, non-Leviathan, non-Octopus, and non-Serpent creatures to their owner's hands. So it's a way kind of to board wipe your opponent's creature side. They're probably not using sea creatures like you will be. And so we also got Survival of the Fittest here, which is the next highest cost mana card. So the reason this one is in here is so that I can fetch Kiora into my hand as early as I can. And when you exile a creature card from your hand, pick one of the first 4 different creature cards from your library, fetch that card, it gains full mana. This effect can trigger only once per turn. So, cast Survival of the Fittest, you have another creature in your hand, you basically will be able to grab a Kiora for free, because we only have 4 creatures in this deck. And then the rest of this is just cards that are higher mana cost than my creatures are. So, I'll show you how this deck works. And yeah, maybe it'll inspire you as well. Alright, well, this is an interesting battle. We got a Omni loop deck happening, but showing you my loop. A loop of my own here, so that'll be fun. So Slin Voda. Well, Slin Voda got going, and then it just took over as the next highest card in my deck. So they got an Omni going. I have Survival of the Fittest. So that's what this does. So I can grab a Kiora from my deck with Survival of the Fittest, give it full mana, and make things happen again. It's pretty funny. So we'll replace Garuda with our Slin Voda with Garuda and get this going. We get our 4 Kioras, 4 Blade Coils, should be next. And then it should go into Garuda and get this whole thing happening again, supposedly. So we get Garudas until we run out of that. We get Slin Voda. And then it should go back down to using Kioras. Yep. So I think you need, yeah, a 4th creature to replace Garuda and then get the cycle happening once again. Okay. Well, eventually it seems like if Garuda stops destroying your library, it'll then move up to the next card in your deck. So that's what happened there. There weren't any more Garudas in my library to fetch, so it just moved up to the next costed card, which in this deck was, let's take a look at it, Turntimber Symbiosis. Yeah, then Turntimber Symbiosis, but I think if I took out Turntimber and just put in, just left Seasons Past in there, I could keep a loop going too, because I can grab some cards. So yeah, this is a very strange deck. Oh yeah, well yeah, eventually I'll just grab Survival of the Fittest, so then that breaks the loop. But the problem was it was hard to get Kiora out consistently without a way to fetch, and Survival of the Fittest is the best way to fetch at this amount of card cost. So that was what was happening there. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this weird little piece of hopefully Magic the Gathering Puzzle Quest history, because I imagine they will fix Kiora soon, although with the way they've dilly-dallied with the Danny boss combo not being fixed either, who knows how long this one will be viable for you. But in the meantime, see what you can do with it, knowing what the parameters of Kiora's abilities are. And yeah, I'll see you in the next one. And by the way, if you guys are serious players and are looking to join a team that's consistently now cracking the top 10, and you think you got what it takes, come join the D3Jected Discord, which is going to be linked here. And then from there, you could rise up in the ranks and maybe join us in Telegram, where we are doing things like this experiment here. This whole video came out of experiments I was doing with a fellow coalition member, and we were theory crafting and also IRL crafting here to make this video possible. So yeah, if you want to join in on the fun, the link is below.